Welcome back to the Game of Two Halves podcast, and it's an absolute pleasure to welcome Andy Pascalides to the Game of Two Halves podcast. Andy, good evening, and how are you?
Jubilar TP, I'm feeling pretty good. It's been an eventful few weeks. We've already conducted 4 testing activations in Melbourne, and we've got some big ones to come at Balmoral on Thursday, St Albans Friday. So I'll be going to the community and business event with Football Victoria, then heading out to St Albans. Saturday, we're actually going to Bendigo. Avondale's game's been switched. Then we're in your backyard, the big derby on Sunday, the Warriors and the Knights, and then Alamine on Monday, Heidelberg, and then we've got the PFA. We're testing former players on the day of the Matildas game, and then we finish up on Sunday week at Glen Ira. So it's a busy schedule, but it's one that's very important for the charity to go beyond the New South Wales border.
Yeah. Now, the heartbeat of football, its mission, its aim is to promote heart health through sport. Mate, tell us a little bit. First of all, tell us a little bit about yourself, actually, and your involvement in football. There's a real connection with the Geelong region. You've had a very, very strong connection with the Geelong region. But let's go back to the old days of the National Soccer League when you were a commentator with SBS Sport. How was that?
As the years go on, you sort of you appreciate those times even more so. I had a golden decade. We call it the golden generation of broadcasting at SBS, when you had your Murrays and your Johnny Warrens and your Kyle Pattersons and Greg Blakes, Mike Hills. We had some really Laurie Schwab. You think about all those people in the early days of the National League. And the beauty of working at SBS back then, the obvious one is, like so many of us, I grew up watching SBS, and I dreamt that I'd be commentating in 1984, And then in 1986, I was the youngest host of a sports show on Australian television on SBS, youngest commentator and whatnot. And for me, I look at things now and, you get frustrated because back then SBS was a one-stop shop. You'd watch World Soccer, rush home, watch World Soccer on a Saturday, on the ball, Saturday, Sunday, live match of the day, Sunday night, and NSL highlights, Olympic Airways or West End, whatever it was sponsored by, on Monday night. And then, of course, World Cups and all the big football tournaments globally. One-stop shop, cost you nothing. And that's where I think our generation were raised to follow football. So our parents and grandparents came here with rich football stock, no matter what your nationality, Serbian, Croatian, Maso, Greek, it doesn't matter. We came here with football in our family's veins. It's in our DNA. And it built from there, and it's taken me to World Cups, Euro Champions Cups, La Liga, calling Barcelona, Real Madrid. That was amazing in 97, 105,000. And more recently, India.
Tell us about that. How did that come about, the Indian Super League, and covering that?
Well, what happened pretty much when I was knifed at Fox, that was a difficult time for me. I felt I was in my prime. I'd given them everything after leaving SBS. I know I could have stayed at SBS for life. I would have loved to, but I think it's like anything, whether you're a footballer, administrator, coach. Look at Ange Postecoglou. You want to test yourself. You want to go as far as you can. So in the end, actually, there was a couple of people at Fox that brought me in that loved what I did, and they had moved on before me, and one of them was looking after the Asia Cup 2007. So I ended up being based in Jakarta as a sole commentator, and I met a little David Horridge, a man with rich history in the UK, and he was brought in to help head up the production of the Indian Super League, and they found themselves one commentator down for a 4 or 5 week period. At that time, I was with Special Olympics fundraising and events manager in New South Wales. So I go up there, call a few games. The richest family in India run it, the Ambani's family, and they're massive, obviously. I think he's probably worth about 80 million right now.
Wow.
And there was a meeting, and they said, okay, who's the Aussie commentator? And I always thought, the accent's not working, because they'd shifted a presenter and a director that were well established in India, Indian locals. So I just assume I get a red card. But then it turns out is we want you to stay for the rest of the season. And I said, look, I'm committed to Special Olympics. And they go, can you come back? Wind it forward, I did 7 years there, and obviously there's quite a few Australians that have played there, quite a few famous people that have coached there, from John Gregory to Steve Coppell. Keane was player coach at one stage. Teddy's there. Marco Materazzi. There were so many well-established players. And even more recently, Dimi Petratos' side won the league, and he scored 12 and 7 assists. So I didn't go back this year because the charity is just exploding.
Yeah, heartbeat for football.
We did 55. Yeah, we did 55 testing days last year, and tested 1,893 people. I just did the maths on the weekend. We've now tested 1,980 people halfway through the year. That's 43 testing days. This trip will equal, and then we've got the Masters Games in Adelaide and some other big projects. There's one that I can't announce right now, but when you hear about it, you're going to say, oh my God, look what this crazy guy's done. Look what this wonderful group of people behind him have been able to deliver. I'd love to tell you, but it's going to be a breakthrough for the charity, but it's going to be a breakthrough for heart health on a global scale. The numbers don't lie. The Heart Foundation, Victor Chang, and so many preeminents in this space look at our numbers. And right now, the cold hard reality is 51% of people that we've tested this year are presenting issues for high blood sugar, high cholesterol, and high blood pressure, of course, the third.
Blood pressure.
So, when we head out to St Albans on Friday night, we want as many of the local community to come up and be checked. Don't be afraid about your numbers. This is the problem I'm tending to see, particularly from men. They don't want to know. Well, in some cases, we've had people that have come to us, got themselves checked, not realised they're actually a diabetic. Their blood sugar was at 16.2. Some have actually been told to go straight to emergency. It can be confronting, but what's the alternative? Not checking, not getting a regular checkup. And dare I say, in the football family, I do not want to mention the club. I've been called just before I've come on air that a local administrator suffered a cardiac arrest and on Friday and consequently passed away yesterday. Out of respect to his family and club, as it turns out, I have family that are involved in that club. So out of respect, I won't mention it, but I will be endeavouring to reach out, which is what we do. And, we've been blessed in a way that in our beautiful game, we've had on the field now, we've had 19 incidents, but 16 players saved. And when I started this journey, sadly, we had 15 deaths in 18 incidents between 2014 and 16. So, it's incumbent on the Labor Party as a whole federally to come up with a policy very soon, because we're dealing with the biggest killer in society. And we know coming through COVID that there are serious issues, inactivity, not exercising, poor diet, not going to get a regular checkup. These are simple things that we do. The reality for me is that men, we are reactive. We only go to get medical help when we're in trouble. Women are proactive. So I urge everyone at the Warriors Knights Derby and at St Albans in particular, from your community and beyond, if you, at Balmoral or, at Avondale's game, wherever, and you can see that chart tells it, don't you? Do you see the red up the top? They're the numbers that we lost. And look at the red now. I want the red to be 0. Defibrillators. I want defibs at every ground. So if there's any politicians listening to me, please reach out. I sat down with the New South Wales Sports Minister on Friday before I drove down, and Steve Demopoulos' office did reach out to me, but it seems to be holiday time for several politicians. They're heading away. The world is open, and I understand that. But I think it's incumbent on the government to realize this. When we hear that $1 billion a year is spent by governments on health, and only
Yeah.
1.5% is preventative, it's an imbalance.
It does.
It's
It
a
does. It
real
says
imbalance.
a lot about that. Now, on Sunday, we're at Elco Park. We're calling on all members of the football community, and it's not just North Geelong supporters, or certainly not people who are going to go along to the derby, but we want everyone from the Geelong football community. North Geelong has actually made it a standalone game on a Sunday. Normally their games are on a Saturday afternoon. They've moved this game a one-off on a Sunday afternoon, 3 p.m. So it's not clashing with any of the other state league games on the Saturday. Expecting a huge crowd, big crowd. You've got a whole team there. When does the activation actually start, and when can people actually come to get checked? And is it, is it quite private? Do they have booths and things like that, or is it out in the open?
Yeah, we've got two options. I'll decide weather-wise whether I set the marquee, behind that goal as you come into the main grandstand area. I might set up there, depending on the weather. I do like to go indoors because it can be very personal for people, and we respect that. It's like a free consultation. Yeah. It's like going to your GP. You get a report. Your stats are checked. It's a little pinprick for your blood. It's a unique model that within 3 minutes we can tell you total cholesterol. So out of respect for privacy, and I sometimes see that, and I'm understanding of that. We're active for 5 hours. So we'd like to test at least 80 people if possible. Please don't be shy. I'll obviously talk to the club beforehand on where they think it fits best and how we set up. I will say this, and you know me, I'm never negative in our game. I love the game. It's in my blood. I was a little bit disappointed because we wanted to be active in Geelong on both Saturday and Sunday, but sadly a local club, I won't name the local club, they were for whatever reason reluctant to consider us, which shocked me a lot. And as a consequence, I spoke to some people at Avondale, and they jumped up, as they do, straight away. And clubs down here, obviously South Melbourne, after I finished yesterday, I got there at half time. They're all like, why don't you come to our club? Well, when you go on the Oz Crow show and then other clubs reach out to you and they want to support you, of course. Like I got a phone call tournament in Adelaide. We're going to be in Adelaide as the designated charity for the Australian Masters Games. It's 8,000 to 10,000 athletes. Of course, we want to try and set up before that. And the Croatian tournament is perfect. It's a one-stop at the headquarters of South Australian football. No brainer being there for 3 days. So, we encourage it. We are surprised when clubs don't want to engage. That's fine. I'm not forcing anyone to do anything. But what I will say is that we're getting other sports knocking on the door. We've already done an AFL activation and a rugby league activation. I want to look after my football family first, second, and third, but we are exclusive, and we will evolve into heartbeat of sport, but also the heartbeat of football. So, it's all about getting yourself checked.
Yeah, and I was going to say, Andy, there's a slide there now on the screen. Why football? And it's a really good point that you make. It's such a melting point. 2 million participants represented by over 200 different cultures, and we're talking not just players. We're talking about officials, about parents, about coaches, about fans, supporters. I mean, it is a massive community. We forget we are such a big community. I mean, here in Geelong, there's probably something along the lines of 5,000 plus players. Now, you throw in partners, you throw in parents, you throw in coaches, spectators. You probably got somewhere anywhere between 10 and 15, maybe even 20,000 people belong to this footballing community here in Geelong. It is something massive. So kudos to you for obviously getting involved in the football side of things, but it's just becoming bigger and bigger. And you often say it's bigger than Ben Hur.
Mate, look, I would have loved to have been in Geelong longer because there are known hotspots. The Heart Foundation maps it all out, and we follow their mapping. I'll give you an example. In the west of Sydney, it's a hotspot. The highest numbers we've had this year, 88% of people at one activation in the west have presented issues. The lowest, you talk about culture, was Banksia Tigers in Sydney. That's a pretty predominantly Muslim founded club. So because of no alcohol and different food groups, their percentage was 19%.
Well, there
What
you
the issue
go.
they were saying to me is the guys that are on the Aguilera, that sit there with the Aguilera on match days, they're the ones they're trying to convert. But it's systematic of what we went through COVID, and let's be honest, we've all been doing it. Not all of us regularly, but most of us, where you're working from home, you go hard for a couple of hours. Geez, I might just have a snack, come back, work again. Oh, geez, I'll have a snack. It's not dinner time yet. Did I go for a walk then? No, I didn't do my 10,000 steps. I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. And before you know it, it's time to cook dinners, kids, take them out to football, whatever you got to do. So I think it's really a lifestyle thing that we address as a human race. It's
absolutely
look at the numbers. We're doing and one thing, when we celebrated the Matildas, and we also focused on women's heart health. We had Kate Gill from the PFA come up, Deb Nichols from Southern United. She's a SCAD survivor. 3 times more women pass through cardiovascular disease than cancers. And these are things that a lot of people don't know. It is confronting, yes, but education and awareness, preventative, and being ready to react, having a defib. Mate, if I told you what I've seen in the last 12 months, where I've been at clubs and the defibrillator is not working, or they're saying to me, what does that red thing mean? I go, when you drive, when it goes red, you stop. When it's green, you drive. Same thing. I mean, what people are getting defibs, putting them there and thinking, that's it, I've done my bit. Check them, make sure they're working. It's something that Julia Zuza, I've got a wonderful Croatian Australian, Julia Zuza, John Zuza, Brendan Zuza. They've got and Google search this, Response for Life. She's been putting defibs all around the country and training people. She's a gun. She's an absolute gun. She's a charity. And just to have her at my function, the fundraiser recently, Sydney Olympic 10K. And then,
wow.
The chairman spent 13 on the auction, spent $8,500 for a Sandcur frame jersey. You know what? I've got something that I want to donate it to my charity, but I can't. I can't because it's signed jersey, and I've given away so many to people. I've got a Leeds United jersey signed by the V Bomber. I think I'll take
Mark
that.
Viduka.
I think I might just take that with me. I think that's, I just keep, every time I see it, my wife goes, why don't you frame it? I go, I'm worried. Just frame the thing. I go, oh my God, Jane, do you remember the highlights? And she doesn't follow football. I go, he killed Liverpool. You got to see. I'll get it on YouTube. Come and have a look. I tell you, that was one of the greatest things I've ever seen in football. What Mark Viduka did that day against Liverpool, the way he did it, and he even says it wasn't one of his best games. But I tell you, all 4 goals were totally different. Totally different.
They were indeed, and even Liverpool supporters, I think, will be torn by saying that was just an absolute fantastic, a freak show by the V Bomber. He was just one of a kind. Andy, we're gonna have to leave it at that. What time does it get underway at Elko Park on Sunday?
Mate, we're on for 5 hours. I think from 11:30. Pretty sure it's 11:30.
From 11:30. Yeah. So do
and
yourself a favour.
St Albans, just for in the greater Melbourne area, St Albans, obviously, because there's a night kickoff. I think we're kicking off around 5:30.
5:30. So 5:30 at St Albans, Churchill Reserve. Otherwise, at North Geelong there will be games throughout the afternoon, throughout the morning. In fact, there will be junior games being played as well. So do go along to Elko Park, make a day of it. It's going to be a great game. At 3 p.m, the main game kicks off, the NPL battle between North Geelong and the Melbourne Knights, but also, the heartbeat for football activation. Andy, we certainly hope it goes really, really well. You've got a very, very busy time ahead, and we look forward to that major announcement pretty shortly. But in the meantime, all the best for Sunday. All the best for this weekend. You're going to be going from Melbourne to Bendigo to Geelong and back to Melbourne, all in the space of a couple of days. Incredible.
Look, what I will say is I'll also be coming back probably after that Monday night at Alamine, and I'll probably come back down on Tuesday and try and catch up with the Savinsky family properly. I'll see them all on Sunday, but just to spend a bit of downtime with Adrian and Jules and everyone else. So looking forward to it.
Look, good on you. Good on you, Andy. Great to have you on the Game of Two Halves podcast. All the very best.